Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Parmi bin Chouari and today I will be presenting water quality monitoring of final effluent discharge from wastewater treatment plants in Melaka. Next. So first, it will be the introduction. Water resources and water quality are vital to industrial and agricultural production, the protection of habitats and public health. Land cover use or cover changes caused by the human activities such as urbanization, watershed depletion have resulted in significant water degradation, soil erosion, habitat destruction and other environmental problems. So, the management of an integrated river basin mainly depends on the sewer and the treatment plants and also the river dynamics. Next we'll be going to the problem statements, objectives and the significance of this study. So first, the problem statement. Wastewater treatment is important in removal of harmful constituents in water before releasing into the river. Those harmful elements may cause harm to humans and to the environment. Therefore, strict regulations were set by the government to regulate the harmful contaminants that may cause harm to humans and the environment. So basically this refers to the Environmental Quality Industrial Effluent Regulations of 2011. So next, the objectives. The objective of this study is to measure the water quality of the final effluent discharge from 8 wastewater treatment plants. Basically what final effluent discharge is the final effluent before getting into the river system. So, the first objective is to compare the concentration of certain pollutants to the standards stated in the Environmental Quality Industrial Effluent Regulation of 2009, as stated before. Next is to compare the water quality between 8 wastewater treatment plants in the final effluent discharge. And lastly is the significance of the study. So, this study focuses on the water quality monitoring of final effluent discharge from 8 wastewater treatment facilities. The final effluent discharge into catchment areas must comply with Standard A from the Environmental Quality Industrial Effluent Regulation of 2009. So, this study will provide data of selected water quality parameters and determine the conformity of the regulation. Next, the methodology. So for this mini project, it is actually a collaboration between our company EETSB and Spectrum Lab. So we will underlook the following scope to complete this project. First is to carry out water quality monitoring for 8 certain points in table 2.1, which are drying bed, loji Aida, loji air bertam, loji air gadit, loji air melimau, loji air sebuko, cincin asahan jus dan juga loji air melimau. So we will prepare and submit water quality analysis report for the Syarikat Air Melaka Berhad. Next. So this is the equipment we'll be using. First we have the cooler box, Vandon and the sample bottles. Next. So this is how we'll be using the Vandon. This is the Vandon. Basically it has a rope that attached to a tube or a cylinder. So we insert the Vandon into the effluent and then a mechanism will close the ends and trap the water inside the Vandon. Then we will pull up the Vandon and then the effluent will be poured into sample bottles which are provided by the labs. And on that same day we will transfer the bottles to the lab for analysis. Next. So lastly we have results and discussion. So first of all, we have analyzed all the parameters from fifth schedule from the 11th regulation of EQIER, and we have found 3 most prominent parameters that we have pinpointed, which are a problem for most of the wastewater treatment plants. First parameter is the total suspended solids, or TSS as we call it. Here we can see we have 8 of the wastewater treatment plants, and there we have the concentration. So we can compare the concentrations between 8 of those treatment plants. And here is the limit. The yellow line, yellow dot line, are the limits from the standard A, which are 50 milligram per liter of TSS. And here we can see that 3 of the treatment plants, Gadek, Cincin and Asahan, managed to comply for all 3 months, May, June and July, while the others have at least exceeded the limits at least once. So we can see that especially Subuko, they have exceeded the limit 3 times for the time of 3 months, up to 2000 milligram per liter, which definitely exceed the limit. Next. So next we have manganese. This is also a problem for most of the wastewater treatment plants. As we can see here, Asahan is the only wastewater treatment plants that managed to comply for all 3 months, while the others have exceeded at least once. Here we don't have any prominent or distinguishable differences between these plants, but these plants actually can do better to reduce their manganese output in their final discharge effluent. So lastly, we have iron, or Fe. The limit here is 1 milligram per liter, and we can see only one, which was Cincin wastewater treatment plant. They managed to comply for all 3 months, while the others failed. At least once they have failed to comply. Especially here, Subuko and Bertam, their iron levels in their wastewater on the month of June was very high, very high. So, and then lastly we have this. If we refer to the environmental quality impact, environmental quality industrial effluent regulations of 2009, on regulation 11, it refers to the 5th schedule. So these parameters should not exceed standard A limit. Failure to follow these regulations may hold the company accountable to a maximum fine of 100,000 ringgit and up to 5 years imprisonment to the person responsible under EQA section 25. So lastly we have the conclusion. So to conclude, this mini project has achieved the objectives of the analysis of final effluent discharge from all of the 8 wastewater treatment plants assigned by the Syarikat Air Melaka Berhad. So the results of the analysis conducted for monthly sampling of the treated effluent water of the month of May, June and July. Result shows that some parameters analyzed have exceeded standard A limit of the Environmental Quality Industrial Effluent Regulation 2009. And the comparisons between the wastewater treatment facility shows that some treatment plants were much better and more capable in terms of complying with the regulation 11 from EQR than others. That is all, and these are my reference. So, anyone have any questions?
I would like to ask.
Okay.
Okay. For the manganese and iron,
Yeah.
the concentration exceeds for most of the plants.
Yeah.
Do you have any justification on why those 2 parameters is exceeds the limit? Does it the treatment plant having problem, or just the water itself?
This is just my assumption because I'm not working with the processes and everything like that. But to clean the water, they have to put chemicals in, and so the fluctuations between the chemicals may vary due to the amount of those chemicals. So maybe they want to reduce TSS, so they increase this chemical, so TSS went down, but at the same time these other parameters went up, such as iron or manganese. But that's just my assumption.
So for iron and manganese, do they have any effect to public health or water bodies?
I'm not especially sure, but these concentrations, I don't think they pose immediate effect on the environment. But as we know, heavy metals can accumulate and bioaccumulate in plants or animals, so that may cause a problem.
So last question, from all of the plants, which plants do you suggest from your findings that shows a good reputation?
From my observations for these 3 months only, I think Chinchin and Ashan, both of these are really good plants. They managed to have good readings for their parameters, and most of the time they comply. But sometimes, maybe due to lack of management, or I don't know, sometimes some of their parameters have spikes. So, any more questions?
Can you share with us your experience during during the site?
Oh, from my experience. By the way, if you can see, Merlimau has only one month for sampling, because for the month of May and June, the water reservoir is dry. Not sure why. They say because they have low shutdown or something like that. So we only have one month of water sample for Merlimau. And for my experience, by the way, all of these plants are far away from each other. Most of them a couple dozens of kilometers away. So it would usually take about 6 hours of travel for the whole day to complete all this sampling. And the experience that I found, some of them are really hard to get the samples. Some of them you have to go through steep slopes. Some of them you have to get dirty your hands, so you always have to have PPE. PPE such as gloves, mask, something like that. And the weather is usually hot in Malacca, so it's better to wear a cap. Yeah. So any more questions? Alright, if it's done, then thank you everyone.